I guess first thing to talk about here is the blue post that Blizzard made. So, as a lot of you know, that we've had a patch that got pushed through yesterday, and it kind of made changes to how the auction house works. There will be some benefits to the changes, but in total, it's going to be a kind of a negative for a lot of the more serious gold makers out there. What I'm looking at here is a blue post. Let's pull that up on screen here. Alright, so this blue post says, the performance reported above is expected and intended following a hotfix that went into effect a few hours ago. What they're talking about is a post someone made showing their logs for how long it took for them to do a bunch of posting and querying to the servers. Basically, at some point, they started to have trouble posting a bunch of different items. This is more than likely going to affect people who are only using TSM for their stuff. Maybe some other methods as well, particularly if you're posting a bunch of, crafted items or transmog stuff, and you're using the options in your add-ons or whatever to I'm trying to think of the words. Hard to think of the words when you're just like on spot. But basically, when you're posting a bunch of auctions all at once, like crafted items and stuff like that, it causes a query to the server. And the more of those items you have posted in separate stacks, it's going to add another query. And the way the auction house works now, you don't post multiple stacks of the raw materials. You post the multiple stacks for like separate pieces of gear, like transmogs, pets. If you have two different types of materials, for example, those will go separate queries. And so what they're trying to cut down on is the amount of queries that are made in rapid succession. So I'll go ahead and keep reading this. The hotfix is intended to both address service issues as well as address an imbalance between the vast majority of players and a very small minority. What they're saying is the very small minority of players is the gold making group, and the vast majority is people who aren't trying to make a lot of gold. So, moving on, through our continuing work to address service issues as they crop up, as well as our constant efforts to find gameplay issues and fix them, we've observed that a small minority of all players generate the majority of auction house traffic. The players who generate all of the auction house traffic are using add-on driven automation to gain a competitive economic advantage over other players, in addition to the increasing strain on the game service. Neither of these things is good for the game as a whole. With this hotfix, we've implemented a new system that effectively gives each player a budget of auction house actions per minute, and only kicks in once that budget has been exceeded. The system is tuned so that it should never affect players using the AH typically, buying consumables, listing gathered or crafted goods for sale, searching for specific items you want to purchase, etc. It should be essentially impossible to encounter the new limits for most players. The new system will, however, throttle players who are using add-ons to run rapid queries to scan the age for specific goods or buy and relist huge quantities of items. The current tuning values are a starting point for this. We very much welcome feedback in the AH activities are hitting the throttle. If the current settings are too strict, we want to relax these measures. So, basically, what that's saying is the majority of players don't use TSM. Majority of players are doing things, just posting things manually, etc. That's basically what that comes down to. But I think fundamentally that is incorrect. I think at this point, TSM has become a very popular add-on among anyone, simply because it allows you to post these items up to the auction house quick, move on with your day, and you can get help with creating your lists and everything like that, your options, because there's YouTube videos out there. So it's not like there's a barrier to entry that is insurmountable. Everybody can use it, and everybody, whatever. But there is a group of people who use it seriously that, so let's go take a look here. This is my bank character, and I've actually been funneling a lot more items into him lately. He doesn't have as much gold as I normally probably would have, but, if we look at the auctions, these are auctions that I mostly posted yesterday. As you see, it's a ton of different items. These are all things that I've got from one character sent over to this guy, and then another character sent over to this guy. It's all from different sources. So basically, based on their limits that they're imposing now, I would take longer to post each of these items to the auction house once I hit that query limit. So if all these items expire because someone else sold theirs before me, or people just don't want that item at that moment, if all these items were to expire around the same time, I'm going to be reposting these items again, and yet again it's going to be a longer, it's going to take longer to post those items because I'm posting these all at once. Now, what I think they're experiencing, and this is just from me watching videos on gold making and everything, I think what they're seeing is this influx since the new AH has been introduced and people are understanding it better. There's an increase of people doing aggressive query scans or aggressive cancel scans. So basically what they're doing is they'll go to their auction screen and they've got all their items posted and they'll run cancel scan. Now they'll let this run for a little bit, and I've got 56 items to go through, so it's going to go through a query of every single one of these items. And as you can see, it's already kind of slowing down, and I'm just doing a query to the server to see what all has been undercut. And in some of these cases, they're not specifically undercut. What it is there's other items that have been posted after mine that will now take a higher priority. So all these items here, if I were to hold down my control button, which is one of my hotkeys for it, and just scroll my wheel, I'm able to go through here and cancel every single one of these. And then all I do, run out here, go to the mailbox, open up my mailbox, gather all my stuff. Alright. Now, go in here again, open up the auction house, run a post scan. Wait for it to scan all this junk. Now, I don't have the best lists for all my stuff, and I definitely am about to post more items than what I originally had. But I think that's kind of the nature of your bank character. You're going to send a bunch of stuff to it, and you're going to post more things. And the more stuff you post, that means if everything starts to fail to sell, see, look at that, it's already hanging up now. I'm using my scroll wheel right now, and it's just like it's taking so long to post this stuff. And so this is basically what they've forced the system into now. Is it's going to sit here and they call it automating, right? Even though you're basically in control of the system yourself, you're the one, manipulating it, you're the one pressing the hotkeys and all this stuff. They're considering this an automated system. They're saying that you're automating the process. What it sounds like to me is more they're trying to put a spin on it that will make people understand in the way they want you to understand it, rather than what's really going on. Because honestly, this isn't an automated system. If there is any automating going on, it's through gold bots. And in which case, when we report the bots, they need to start taking action against the bots. Like, it's no joke. Literally one day I probably reported about 5 bots, and those bots are still around. So yeah, that took me roughly 2 minutes to post all those auctions, as opposed to how it used to be, where it wouldn't even take that long at all. So that is what they're doing to prevent an overload on the servers. But there's the part to this that they're not really noticing. So let's switch over to the Blizzard UI, right? So we'll go to Gorgrind. See, look at this. I posted this 7 hours ago, right? Someone posted it after me for just 1 gold. That's normal, right? But let's go looking through here, and let's see. Gorgrind Flytrap. It's probably gonna make a liar out of me here, but yeah. See, here we go. So, oh yeah, I can't buy my own stuff. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make here is the reason why the gold makers go through this method. So let's just start that whole train of thought over again, okay? Could there potentially be an API per se? Yeah, there's an API. The API is what they use to create these add-ons. The API is basically the code in the game that's being left open for add-on developers to make use of to create their add-ons. That's how you get your TSMs. That's how you get your ELV UIs and all that. So, but like the point of my whole spiel there at the beginning, to show you what I was doing with the cancel scan, the post scan, and everything, it's to bring up the issue that I believe is the actual issue of why they're getting hammered so hard with all these queries. Because there's no doubt that the auction houses, at times it can be a little slow. The issue is the way that they sell the items in the auction house, okay? So let's say old times were, if you wanted to sell something, you would just undercut the person that posted their stuff last, and your stuff would go first, right? Well, now, on top of doing the undercutting, people can sell it at the same exact price as yours, and theirs will still take priority over yours because they're the most recent posting. So what that does is incentivizes people running a bank alt who maybe they've got the Brutosaur and they're just standing on top of the mailbox or whatever, which I think, side note, I think if they just prevented people from standing on mailboxes, it might help a little bit, but it's not going to fix anything. The Brutosaur mount, actually, with the auction house functionality built into it, has basically fostered this economy of quick, rapid succession of canceling and then reposting. I'm just going to leave that out there. And this is coming from someone who's working toward getting his Brutosaur, or trying real hard. But it's leading to that. If they're trying to stop the scraping costs, the scrapping costs, they could do an API. I don't think they're trying to stop any costs. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're typing, but no. What the issue, and believe me, it's probably a multi-tiered bunch of issues, but the biggest issue that I see is they go by a first in, last out method for sorting. They're basically prioritizing what sells. Okay, so let's say that we, like, 20 of us post Spirit of Harmony in the auction house, right? And so let's get MS Paint out. Let's get MS Paint out. Let me do this here. Let's do window capture, paint, MS Paint. Oh Lord, there you go. Yep, there I go. All right, so I got my MS Paint window out. All right, so the first in, last out basically says, so think of this as a grocery store shelf, right? No, let me do this. Think of this as a grocery store shelf. This is the back of the shelf right here, okay? And this is the front of the shelf. This is where the buyers, do a smiley face, right? I'm not using my pen, so forgive my bad art. But this is the buyer, okay? And this is the shelf. So when you're restocking the shelf, you're going to put all of your items in, and you're going to start with putting an item from the back of the shelf. And the further out we go to the left here, these are the newer items, right? So let's say the buyer's coming in and they're going to buy 3 boxes of Fig Newtons or whatever these are, right? So we're just going to erase these here, right? These 3 Fig Newtons are sold, right? These 3 boxes are sold. Well, another stalker comes in and they're restocking the shelves, and these older ones are still right here, right? Well, they come in, they add in 3 more Fig Newtons to sell to the public. Now, what this means is that the older items... You dogs need to shut up. What this means is that the older items are still for sale, right? But they're further in the back. And nobody who's buying anything... I want Fig Newtons, nice. Nobody who's buying anything is trying to... Leia! No, anybody who's buying anything is not going to reach in the back of the shelf to grab the oldest thing. They want the freshest item, right? Well, what the auction house is doing right now is it's not really giving the consumer a choice to pick the newest or the oldest item. It's actually prioritizing the most recent one posted up. So basically, at some point, let's look at the length of time that you post these auctions for, right? You've got a 12-hour, 24-hour, 48-hour time frame. Well, this one right here could be at time... like maybe have 1 hour left before it expires. This one might have 3 hours left or whatever. But the point is, eventually, the last things, the very last... No, it does not put the older ones in first, unfortunately. No, the older ones do not sell first. It's all the newer ones. And that's kind of my point. These older items are going to expire. They're going to come off the auction house and get sent right back to the player's inbox, and the player has to go and so like let's just erase these from the shelf, right? Because like, you know, obviously a store is going to go and they're going to be like, oh man, this stuff's close to expiring, let's go ahead and take it off the shelf. You know, nobody wants to buy old expired goods, okay? And then of course they're going to take this stuff and it's going to get shoved to the back. And then what comes in next? Let's do this. You know, they're going to add some more fig Newtons to the front of it, and those things that were in there. This is a constant cycle, right? Because players, when you're posting things on the auction house, you're not going up against like 3 or 4 people. You've got tons of people on these servers that are selling their items all at one time, and this is a constant cycle. So the more you're not aggressive with canceling your auction house items and then reposting it, the further back that item's going to be in the queue to actually sell. So my idea to solve the issue would be simply to just go with the method like a grocery store when they're restocking milk, okay? So when they restock milk, mind you, I'm talking like purely just from the fact I used to work at a grocery store, not necessarily game logic here. So I'm hoping I'm putting these in ways that everybody will understand. But basically, if they do a first in, first out method for prioritizing it, that would cut down on how many things gets reposted in, you know, succession. Because look at it, if you look at it like this, okay? For the longest time, the only thing that would force people to cancel their postings and repost it is if they got undercut. But most of those people that are using TSM only cancel and repost whenever they actually when they've got room in like their minimum buyout for it to actually be worth canceling it and reposting it. So if you basically went by that, you're basically there's really no point. There's a natural limit to how much someone's going to cancel and repost, because I mean they want to make more money instead of less money. So it would make no sense for them to cancel something and repost it for less than the market minimum. So if they were to go with a first in, first out, it would also disincentivize them canceling the items and reposting it, because here's what happens. The first item gets put on the shelf. Second item gets put on the shelf. Third item gets put on the shelf. You know, you got your customer, he's waiting right over here, happy, you know, trying to, you know, get his milk, you know. And the first milk that's slid in by the employee in the back here, because, you know, they slide their milk in from the back, you know, from where it's the coldest. Everything gets shoved to the front, and the customer buys it from the front. So the first in, first out. So basically, anything that's on the auction house for, you know, the longest amount of time has priority to go out. That's why, you know, you're not gonna see, like, typically, and mind you, there's always an exception, but typically you're not gonna see like milk with a later expiration date in the front, because they want to sell that older stuff first. And that should be the same thing with the auction house. Every item that is closer to expiring and being sent back to the seller, that should be prioritized over anything that's reposted or being posted for the first time. That would, like I said, all of this would disincentivize cancel scans and then reposting it. I don't see any scenario where doing aggressive cancel scans would benefit anyone in this scenario, unless they're trying to repost it at a lower price. In which case, again, there is a natural limit to how they will do that, because at some point, what happens, especially for the users that use TSM, which is this smaller group of players that they're referring to, is the TSM users. Eventually, at some point, your market price kind of hits a wall, and it's like, okay, look, I'm not going to cancel this scan. I'm not going to cancel this item just because if I were to post any lower, it'd be below your minimum buyout. And so we're just going to leave it right here. What would happen then is instead they would just buy up the things that are at a lower price and then repost it for higher to reset that value right there. And then in that case, everybody wins, because the person that's trying to cheat the system by undercutting way below where it's even feasible to post it, they get their money that they wanted out of it, and the person selling it, they get to make a little bit of extra cash off of that, and they get to reset the market. Explains why my items don't sell regardless of the undermined journal's stats. Yeah, I mean, basically, unless you are hounding the auction house constantly. Like, let's take a look at my post that I just did. Been undercut. Now, again, a lot of these, they're not specifically that they're undercut. A lot of these are going to be simply that someone posted after me. Now, obviously, I'm not able to see that information here. Let's see. Auctions. Let's take a look at the saddle shoot. That probably did get undercut. No, it didn't get undercut at all. In fact, probably what it was, if anything, is might have just been like the minimum bid if it was, undercut at all. But as far as I'm aware, everything saddle shoot. As far as I'm aware, yeah, everything's the same price. So, like I said, it's not necessarily that it's been undercut, but it is... Here, let me show you what I'm looking at. I just realized I didn't switch over. But basically, everything that's been quote-unquote undercut, I mean, it's not necessarily that the price was undercut, it's just that something was posted after me. And so it takes higher priority. So... basically, unless I were to go through and let's just cancel these scans. And then we'll open it up. And we're going to post it at the exact same price. It's not going to change in any price necessarily. It'll say that I'm undercutting the competition, but still 906.26. See, it's still the same. It's just now, if I were to switch to the UI saddle shoot, go here, and see, I'm still going to be in there. I didn't undercut them in any way. It's still the same price, And if I were to go in here and let's run a cancel scan real quick, it should, as long as nobody's doing this at the same time as me, should basically say that nothing's been undercut yet. At least for the saddle shoot as my example here that I'm using. Nether weave cloth, I can understand that. I don't think I reposted that just now. Yeah, see, just the nether weave cloth. That wasn't anything that I posted just now. Everything is right at the front of the queue, and that's good. So the people canceling auctions would be causing strain. I am 99.9% sure that the people canceling the auctions is who's causing the strain. 99.9%. Now, there's obviously going to be other factors involved as well. But honestly, honest and truly, I believe that their method of trying to reduce the strain on the servers is more of a net negative for people than it is a positive. I think they're going about fixing the problem the wrong way. The solution is not to throttle, although they can tweak it a little bit and, you know, probably make it an okay thing to work around. I don't see it as a totally negative thing, mind you. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, because clearly there are times when people are going overboard in some of this stuff. But I mean, here's the deal. Also, there's going to be a lot of people who their end game is making the gold, right? They don't go out and raid. They don't do mythic pluses or anything like that. They're just about making as much gold as they can. They want to have as much gold as they can to go into the next expansion with. They want to be able to buy whatever they want whenever they want it, you know, all that. They're not, I mean, and like they said, it is a smaller population of the player base that is doing that, but that is a population of players. And there's a lot of players that are trying to get into that, such as myself. In my case, not in a form of end game, but as a way to try and get that Brutosaur before the next expansion comes out, for example. Because like right now, I have 304,000 gold on the server right now. I've got a lot of work to do, you know, and I'm going to have to make use of the auction house to do this. I can't feasibly spend 8 hours a day doing raw gold farms every day. It's not possible. So I will have to use the auction house, and doing this throttling that they're doing makes it take longer to do it, and just it's an entire net negative. And they would make it a whole lot better for everybody across the board. And I'm talking like even the people who take the auction house as, you know, what they use it as minimal as possible, right? It would help them out too, because then if they want to sell their stuff, like people like you, Frasley, for example, you don't sit here and hound the auction house like I've been doing during this video, just to show you guys, hey, this stuff's getting undercut, but it's not really being undercut, it's just being, you know, it's just less in priority for them to sell. Like, okay, it is what it is in that situation. But I think if they went with a first in, first out implementation for priority, it would fix the entire situation. And you know what? If I'm wrong, they can just revert it. I think anyone that is a casual seller on the auction house would benefit just as much as a gold seller would. Or not gold seller. Wow. Ain't nobody committing that crime around here, right? No, I think a casual gold maker will benefit just as much as any person who takes gold making seriously, just from changing that. Because if you put an item on there before me, yours would sell before mine in that method. And you don't have to sit there and hound the auction house just to make that gold. It's just as simple as that. So that's my rant. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Go ahead and switch on over here. So, yeah. I stood on a soapbox for a little while. Any questions about what I said? Maybe I can clarify anything that I may have spoken incorrectly about. 'Cause I am more than willing to talk about this some more. No, it was eye-opening. Well, I'm glad, man, because, like, and mind you, again, I'm not an expert, like, at this stuff at all. Like, this is all stuff that I've been learning just from watching the YouTube videos on how to make the gold. And when I found out about how they prioritize the auctions, I wouldn't say that I was annoyed, but I will guarantee you I started to recognize names in the auction house of people who were quote unquote undercutting me. And I would see them run past me, like to the auction house, right? They'd stand there for a second, and then they'd run out to the mailbox, and then come right back out. And then if I did a cancel scan again, sure enough, their name was popping up on the cancel scan. So, yeah, it's, you know, it was definitely when I realized that Blizzard may not have fully thought out the implementation of their new auction house.